You're being asked to write the common denominator for each pair of fractions. Use the common denominator to then write equivalent fractions, and we're showing two methods. So for question A, we have 1/3 and 3/4 as our fractions. So the denominator of 1/3 is the 3, and the denominator of 3/4 is 4. So in this rectangle, draw 3 equal parts one way and 4 equal parts the other way. Now be careful. We're not putting 3 lines in one way and 4 lines the other way. We want 3 and 4 equal parts. So to create 3 parts, we're actually going to draw 2 lines. 2 lines makes 3 parts. To get 4 parts, we're going to draw 3 lines. Now you may have drawn this in the other direction where you did 4 parts this way and 3 parts this way, and that's fine. It gets you to the same end result. So the next question is, how many parts are in the rectangle? Well, now if you count these, there's 12 parts. And the shortcut is just 3 times 4 is 12. That'll tell you how many parts there are. So if that's how many parts there are in the rectangle once you've divided it up, that's going to be your common denominator. It's going to be 12. So the other strategy, the other method, is to use multiples. So the multiples of 3 are 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 21, 24, and I could keep going. There's no end to the list of multiples of number 3, so I'm just going to put 3 dots at the end of that. Same thing for number 4. I'll just start off 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, 24, and again I could continue on forever. There is no end to the number of multiples of 4. So now I just got to look and see, well, what are the common numbers? Well, I can see that 12 is a common number. I also see that 24 is a common number. And because these lists go on forever, you're going to actually have an infinite list of common multiples as well. The list won't be as big as these lists, but there is an infinite number of common multiples. So that's why we tend to go with the lowest common multiple, which in this case is the smallest number I circled, which is 12. So 12 then, we've determined in 2 different ways, is going to be our common denominator. So 1/3 is equal to something over 12, and 3/4 is equal to something over 12. So now we have to figure out what these missing top numbers are. To go from 3 to 12, we have to multiply by something. If you're not sure what that number is, do the opposite of multiply. Do 12 divided by 3, and that equals 4. So I know that 3 times 4 gives me 12. If I multiply the bottom by 4, then I have to multiply the top by 4 as well. So 1 times 4 is 4. Over here, 4 times something is 12. Well, 12 divided by 4 is 3, so then 4 times 3 is 12. So then if I multiply the bottom by 3, I multiply the top by 3 as well. 3 times 3 is 9. So 4 twelfths and 9 twelfths are equivalent fractions to 1/3 and 3/4, but we're using 12 as a common denominator. So doing that allows us then to do addition or subtraction using these versions of the fraction, because they now have the same denominator. That's where we're headed with this in the next section. So this is just the beginning steps. Alright, so part B, 1/2 and 3/5. We can draw a diagram again. And based on the denominators 2 and 5, that means I have to divide the rectangle in 2 one way, and then 5 pieces the other way. So that's a 2 by 5 rectangle. So there are now 10 pieces in there. So my common denominator is going to be 10. That's what doing the diagram does for me. Now we can also use multiples. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, etc. That's for 2. For 5, we've got 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, etc. Again, look for common numbers. 10 is a common number. 20 is a common number. There is an infinite number of possibilities that you could use, but to keep it simple, we go with the littlest one, so 10. Now that we've determined our common denominator both ways, we're going to actually create the equivalent fractions. So 1/2 is equal to something over 10. 3/5 is equal to something over 10. So I'm multiplying a number here. 2 times what is 10? Well, 10 divided by 2 is 5, so I know that I'm multiplying by 5. So then 1 times 5 is 5. So 5/10 is an equivalent fraction to 1/2, using our common denominator. Same deal here. 5 times something gives you 10. Well, 10 divided by 5 is 2, so 2 times 5 is 10. If you're multiplying the bottom by 2, then you multiply the top by 2. 3 times 2 is 6. So 6/10 is the equivalent fraction to 3/5, using our common denominator. So now using 5/10 and 6/10, we can do adding or subtracting. So that's the process for the show you know.